So, this is a very it's a situation that's balanced on a knife's edge right now. I think there's reason to be optimistic, but some questions still need to be answered before we can say how we're going to go forward.
So, Jonathan Lemire, markets or the futures are trading about 5% up. The Wall Street Journal reporting that oil futures also are up, that the markets believe that Capitol Hill is moving toward a deal despite the president's late night tweet last night. Any insights?
Well, there's certainly desperation for a deal to happen soon. The motives of the president's tweet remain unclear. It was nearly midnight when he sent it out. It did echo what he said in the press briefing a few hours earlier, though, where he was asking Congress to go with the Republican deal and to ignore what Nancy Pelosi was putting forth. It does seem like, according to our reporting, which lines up exactly with what Bob and Casey have said, that a deal is close. It's not clear whether the president is trying to inject some last-minute drama into this, if he has legitimate concerns, if, like Casey said, he received a call from someone who's upset, or whether, frankly, he's just reacting to the news coverage from earlier in the day when things looked a little less certain. That is often when you're not sure of the origin of a Trump tweet, Fox News is usually a relatively safe guess. Bob Costa, I wanted to just follow up with you on something to pick up where Casey just said. Your paper had a nice piece today reconstructing Rand Paul's movements in the last 6 days or so, that it was 6 days since he took the test and he continued to move forward about Washington. He went golfing in Northern Virginia. He went to the Senate pool. He spent time with staff and attended some lunches. What is your sense? I know you talked to a lot of Republicans over there on the Hill. What is the sense of both anger and worry among Paul's colleagues and also congressional staffers as to what he did?
There is growing frustration with Senator Paul. They obviously wish him well. Many senators and aides called Senator Paul and his top officials in the last 24 hours wishing him well. But after some of those phone calls, there were conversations among senators about why was he in the Senate gym? Why is there not a disclosure process for Congress about different pandemic protocols, for different health protocols? And some of the senators have told me privately that they would like to see some more rules put in place about how to handle not only a pandemic, but different health issues that come up on Capitol Hill. Because you had the mayor of D.C. close everything in terms of gyms, restaurants that were being closed, yet the Senate gym was still working on Capitol Hill. And Congress is always, in a way, part of Washington, but isolated from Washington. And that is something, when it comes to health issues in particular, that's on the minds of many lawmakers.
Casey, we've also seen Amy Klobuchar's husband. He's now been tested positive and sadly is in hospital. I mean, how many more members of Congress are thinking they need to get tested? They may, because they all meet their constituents all the time, that Rand Paul, Amy Klobuchar's husband, is now bringing it close to home, and many more of them may effectively be tested and be tested positive for this.
Yeah, and Katie, I do think we should just take a moment and send our well wishes to the Klobuchar Bessler family.
There is not a nicer man than John Bessler
her
out
husband. There really is not. And anyone who has, worked with the senator here in Washington has met him at events. They are oftentimes together. In this case, they're saying that they weren't, so she's still able to continue working because it's been 2 weeks since she saw him. But he is very, very ill in the hospital and is telling people to really not mess around because this could really hit you in a very personal way. We also know that Ben McAdams, who's a young, pretty fit, as far as we know, member of the House from Utah, who landed in the hospital with symptoms of this. I think, like all of us, this is far away until it isn't. And with the rapid spread of this disease, I think it's inevitable where, most of us will learn of somebody that they know who has been very dramatically affected by what's going on here. I just think it's a matter of time, and it underscores to everyone just how seriously we should take this. And when you spend your time in the corridors of power in Washington, you're used to being protected from a lot of the things that affect every other, American in the country. And this virus, as we know, does not discriminate. It doesn't matter how much money you have or don't have or power you have or don't have, it can come to you as well. And, as far as the gym's concerned, the senators are used to operating under their own rules. We were talking yesterday on the show about the fact that the gym was closed, but they walk in there with a combination lock. And so I think that this is really a shock for everyone. And politically speaking, I mean, Joe, to the point that you've been making repeatedly over and over and over again on the show about it being a medical crisis and not an economic crisis, what I don't understand about where the president is coming from here is that if you do not take the actions necessary to stop this spread, if you do not keep these measures in place for as long as we need them, the political and economic ramifications are not going to ignore the reality that results. This is not something you can bluster or push or headline or whatever your way out of. You just can't. If this medical crisis is exacerbated because this president lifts these social restrictions too quickly, we are going to have an economic crisis. If he wants to get reelected, he's going to need to make sure that his decisions aren't blamed for everyone being concerned that somebody they know was in the hospital or passed away. I mean, we all at NBC News had a very beloved colleague that we've already lost to this virus, and we are still only at the beginning.
All right, Kasie Hunt, great insights. Bob Costa, thank you as well, and thank you for your reporting. Mika, I want to let's just follow up for a second on what Kasie just said.
Yeah.
This is one of those rare times where everything that a politician wants can be achieved by one approach. Like
one approach.
One approach. You take care of the healthcare crisis. The underlying economic crisis will follow, and your political crisis will be alleviated. If you don't take care of that healthcare crisis, and you do half measures, instead of being like Wuhan this morning, where it did, yes, it did begin there. You can be offended by that if you want to, but that's where it began. But this morning, Wuhan went back to work. Rush hour is starting back again because they took strict measures, severe measures, and they were able to kill the virus or to cut down on the virus enough where they could go back to work. Now, let's just talk cynically. So if you think that everything the president does, he does for his own cynical purposes, if you believe that, well, then the best thing the president could do is to be as aggressive as possible and have what's happened in Wuhan and what's happened in South Korea happen here. Bend the curve. Bring this crisis to an end. Get the economy started. Half measure so. And acting like a day trader where you think you're going to be able to split the baby, that's going to drag this out. And it's going to drag it out not only into the summer. It's going to drag it out into the fall.
It's going to kill a lot of people.
It's going to drag it out into election season. And yes, it is, most importantly, most concerningly, it's going to kill a lot of people. But if you just look at this cynically, actually doing the right thing medically makes the most sense economically and politically. But as Kasie was saying, if you don't, this drags on. More Americans die. More businesses fail. More markets crash. And this goes into the fall during the president's reelection time. So if that's what he's thinking about, then actually we all can be grateful that what's in his best political interest is also in America's best health interest and economic interest, and he needs to start thinking that way and stop listening to people, again, on health care, like Larry Kudlow, who told us this crisis, this pandemic, was contained weeks ago. It's not. We're about to go into the most difficult phase in America. And whether that lasts 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 3 months, depends on what the president does over the next few days. The window for decisive action is quickly closing.